We're going to go through this really quick. This is the reading and writing fill in the blanks practice number 2. The reason why we're going to go through this quick is because most of these questions are testing vocabulary and collocation. There's only one testing grammar, right? With vocabulary and collocation, yes, there are clues, but most of the time, it's either you know it or you don't, right? So if you don't know it, hopefully we learn it here. And for grammar, that's when I'll show you where the clues are. Now, for number 1, we do have a way to eliminate options here. If you look at the 4 options here, do you notice there are 2 words that end with ORS, surveyors and purveyors. What does that mean? Words that end with ORS or just OR, like doctor, those are people, right? Those are people. So we have 2 words here that are people, because words that end with ION and ANCE, they're not people. So we just need to determine whether or not the sentence is talking about people. Now, let's read it. This is reading, so you will have to read a little bit, right? So that was before blank established that it was the highest mountain on earth. Do you agree that it should be a person determining or establishing whether or not the mountain is the highest on earth? I think a person has to do that, especially when I just glance through this whole thing and I see that they're talking about 1852. 1852? Do you think they had drones or helicopters? I'm sorry, I don't know if there were helicopters back then. I don't know when the helicopter was invented, but I know they didn't have the technology back then to use machines. So I strongly believe they're using a person here. They had to physically climb up there. All right, so now it's going to be one of these, surveyors or purveyors. But right now, you might not actually know the meaning of one or even both. And this is where I say, why the rush? You don't need to answer this right now. Let's keep going. We can come back. Later on, you might see more clues, and it'll help you to determine whether or not it's surveyors or purveyors. So you don't have to answer right now. At least you know you only had 2 options. So let's keep it moving. The next one here is actually a collocation, okay, with a dependent preposition here, of. If you haven't heard of it before, this is the collocation. To give the illusion of something. To give the illusion of something means to make something look like something that it's not. What? So, well, look at this sentence. To give the illusion of greater height. What does that mean? Greater height. To give the illusion of greater height means to make something look taller than it really is. So you see, the collocation here is to give the illusion of something. If you didn't know that collocation and you're looking at all the other ones, then we have to learn this one. Now you might be able to say give the illusion. Nah, this sounds really weird. Illusion. Anticipation, maybe. Inclusion, maybe, but it's very specific to some type of context. But to give the illusion of something, especially when they say greater height, oh, that's mandatory. That's got to go together. So we got this one. Now the next one, this one we actually practice in class. Do you notice that this one right here is testing you on pretty much tenses. Tenses, and then one right here. This one right here. What is this? What is the name of the sentence structure when you write the verb this way? I hope you remember it's called passive voice with the be verb and the PP. We don't have any more be verbs and PPs. So we need to determine whether or not we're looking at a passive voice. If not, we can eliminate that right away. So if we were to use passive voice right here, if you still don't know what passive voice is, it's in the tutorials. You can watch the video, the recorded tutorials, and we'll talk about passive voice there. But for those that know, I hope you remember, after a passive voice, after the past participle, the PP, the ED, what do we need to have right here? We need to have a preposition. Does this look like a preposition to you? Hell nah. This ain't a preposition. So what does that tell us? It's not passive voice. We can't use passive voice here. So now we are left with 3 options. Remains, present tense. Present tense means a fact, something that always happens routinely. Remained means something that happened in the past and it finished in the past. And has remained means something started in the past and it hasn't finished yet. It's still going. So once again, we might have to read this. So I'll get rid of this. That's not the answer. All right, so this blank, or this figure, blank, the officially accepted height for more than 100 years. Okay, for more than 100 years, what we don't understand is it still officially the accepted height, right? Because if it is, we can say it's present tense because it doesn't give a specific starting point. But if it isn't, we can use past tense, right? But inside this sentence, it doesn't tell us. Does that mean you're good to go? No. Remember, I said that if you can't find the clue for the tenses in the same sentence, you got to check above and below, okay? Above and below. And right away, I see this right afterwards. So that's capturing my attention. So I want to read this just to see. So what happened in 1955? In 1955, it was adjusted. It was adjusted. What is the it? What is the it? It must be talking about the height. It was adjusted. So what does that tell you? It tells you that this is over. It is not the officially accepted height anymore because it was adjusted. If it is over, what tense do we use? Simple past, right? Simple past. Because remains states something that always happens, routinely, has nothing to do with the past, and has remained means this should still be the officially accepted height, but it's not. So we're going to pick remained. All right. Now, next one right here, also a collocation. Now, I've heard that in some languages, it's a very similar word. Okay. But here, the preposition about is your clue. Okay. Has some reservations about, has some rejections about, has some applications about, has some implications about. All of those sound kind of weird, except for one. But that one you might not have heard before. Reservations. Because when you are thinking reservations, you're thinking hotels and restaurants. You're thinking have reservations for something, right? Absolutely correct. But we can also say had some reservations about or have some reservations about. And what does that mean? It means you have an opinion usually opposite or you disagree. Okay, when you say you have some reservations, it usually means you disagree with the opinion that they have, but you might not necessarily want to say it. Okay, that's why reserve means to keep to yourself. Have some reservations about something. All right, so that is your collocation here. And then the last one, this one is probably the most difficult. The reason is because you might not know the vocabulary, and this is all about that vocabulary. Okay? But the clue is here, the highest, and then in comparison, right? This right here says nowhere near the highest. So that means it's not the highest. So what do we see here? So they're saying that these other mountains, several dozen mountains are probably higher, right? If you read this, it says it is nowhere near the highest. So they're saying that one of these mountains is not the highest. And then there are 30 other peaks and then several other ones here that are higher. So that means which one of these words can represent higher? I say surpassed. It means you passed them, right? Surpassed. It just means passed. The other words don't really have that meaning. Reduce is the opposite. And the other ones have no connection with being higher or further, right? So surpassed would be that answer, okay? So now we still got this one left. And if we were to do this and read through some sentences, I would notice some words like this, right? There are some words when you see this, if you're scanning through, if you know that this one you didn't get and just scan through and you see words like surveyor, survey, this is probably where you want to take a wild guess. And it's not that wild. Okay, you got 3 words that refer back to a similar word and 1 word that's exactly the same. I would pick surveyors. Okay, in case you didn't know the vocabulary, that would be the safest answer. You would not say I see the word survey 3 times in this thing and I'm going to pick purveyors. That is not logical, right? So that's why I would pick that, and let's check it, and it's good to go. I hope that helps.